Hey there Mario fans, this is just another Mario fan here speaking, you can tell by the color of my hat. I've never played Paper Mario. Today, we are reviewing the Super Mario Galaxy movie by Illumination. How whimsy! This film has animation and references. Yoshi is so cute! And John Star Fox makes me gassy. Alright, April Fool's joke's over. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. How do you get this disappointed for a movie you were already not even sure was gonna be that good? I just came home from theaters having watched the new Super Mario Galaxy movie that came out today, and just to cut to the chase, I honestly left almost embarrassed for just how shallow and mundane this excuse of a movie was. Even comparatively to the first Mario film of all things. Admittedly, I didn't really love that one either, despite being a huge Mario fan. I thought it was a pretty cliche children's movie, but at the end of the day, it also had a job of setting up the whole Mario universe. And as flat as the characters in development were, it was still fairly harmless, and for what it was worth, the references were also handled with grace and tied in organically with the plot. So I went into the sequel hoping for at least largely the same strengths and weaknesses, if not maybe a little bit better. Especially knowing the Galaxy games are already some of the more soulful and story-driven Mario adventures. But who the cares about the story when you can just have explosions, boom, and fan service? It's obviously gonna sell heaps regardless, so why bother putting in the extra effort? Like, dude, Mario games have never been about story anyways. It doesn't matter that they have gameplay to make up for it. It's not like movies are a completely different form of media. Mario never had any sort of depth anyways. It would completely alienate everyone. But look, aren't you so nostalgic right now? Oh my god, Honey Queen showed up for 5 seconds. I'm literally crying. I fucking hate this! You know, I'd put a spoiler warning in this point of the video, but honestly, I don't think anything in this slop movie is so crazy enough it deserves it. Heck, they already spoiled what would have been the biggest surprise anyways. I don't want to say this movie was completely unenjoyable. At its best, I suppose it's a harmless screensaver to turn off your brain to while you're playing your Switch on your couch. For where it shines, Bowser Jr. was a pretty kick-ass main villain, and probably the best character in general to come out of this movie. He's virtually the only one who's driving the plot forward, seeking to rescue his father and take over the universe. And his presence is deeply felt throughout the movie, being a surprisingly formidable opponent whenever he shows up fighting the good guys. And his relationship with Bowser was pretty cute as well, with plenty of heartfelt moments between each other, including a short flashback where Bowser is telling Jr. a bedtime story, which even ended up being Bowser Jr.'s primary motivation. Unfortunately, this is also the only remotely interesting character here. Everyone else is either predictable, fan service, or just so cartoonishly unrealistic that you can't help but roll your eyes, even for a kids movie. Mario is fine, I guess. He's the same generic hero was in the first movie, although I guess he has some nice banter with Peach. So congratulations! That makes him shockingly more interesting than most characters here, even if his crush on Peach barely goes anywhere, and doesn't get any closure. Meanwhile, Luigi and Yoshi barely do anything or contribute to the plot at all, despite being some of the main characters this time around. All those hints from the trailers about Yoshi's bond with the brothers being a big deal? Nope, those trailer scenes were just part of a short fan service montage at the start. On another note, Toad in this movie is envious of Yoshi at first, but that plotline too goes absolutely nowhere. Oh yeah, that reminds me, he was in this film. Peach is largely the same generic girl boss from the first movie, maybe even more so this time because she wins literally every fight no matter how stacked the odds are against her, something not even Roselina with her space magic could do, so that already kills half the stakes. And it definitely justifies her leaving on her own and just abandoning the Mushroom Kingdom. She doesn't even get reprimanded for this, despite this making it easier for Bowser Jr. to destroy everything later. Oh yeah, and also speaking of Roselina, good grief, what a waste. You thought Luigi was sidelined in the first film? Yeah! Roselina, the Galaxy character, gets like, what, 5 minutes of screen time? And most of it is at the start before she gets kidnapped by Bowser Jr. After that, she's just chilling around in a lowly prison cell. Although I guess how overpowered she was in the opening, it's also a way to even out the odds. Thanks, Illumination. And it's not even like she's an unimportant character to the movie. One of the plot's focal points is saving Roselina, and she also has an important backstory in relationship to Peach, which we'll get to more later. Honestly, it's baffling that Mr. John Star Fox here not only has probably at least 5 times as much screen time, but is also probably the protagonist who serves the most value to the plot in general. He's the one who helps Mario and his friends travel across space after they stumble up on him in the International Space Station. No, I will not call it Gateway Galaxy. This is not my Gateway Galaxy. But yeah, and at the end of the day, even this character is not that deep anyways. He's very clearly just a fan service addition to prepare people for the revival of Star Fox games. Otherwise, he's just as much an autopilot as everyone else. His only purpose is to be a way to get to other planets. And don't get me started on how stupidly Bowser was written. At first, he's very clearly trying to manipulate the heroes into letting him go free and turn back big, in just about the most obvious villain way ever, and Luigi, being the dumbass cartoon character he is here, is completely on board with it. Later on, when the heroes crash down on Honeyhive Galaxy and Mario accidentally does do that, Bowser suddenly does a complete 180 to his personality, even selflessly sacrificing him as a prisoner when Honey Queen wants to punish them for collateral damage. Even though he would have had no way of escaping if Bowser Jr. also didn't happen to turn up. And he wasn't even accounting for that, he was surprised to find out. And now he doesn't even want to hurt Mario and Luigi anymore when Bowser Jr. snoops up on them in space. So while the heroes think they've been betrayed by Bowser, they actually haven't yet. And in fact, Bowser even saves their lives, even though this goes completely against everything else he's done. What a completely horrible message to send, kids. That you should give in to giving a second chance to your worst enemy, even if they were a horrible person. He does turn evil later again, after Bowser Jr. gives him a pep talk, and after that he's just a standard pure evil villain again. So none of that good in him mattered anyways. So much for that supposed character development. He doesn't even get a resolution with the good guys. He just goes straight to jail off screen, and we only learn that in the post credits. And everything else from Wart, Honey Queen, Rob, Birdo, Mr. Game & Watch, and the Ruined Dragon is just barely minute-long cameos for the sake of fan service, whose contribution is either hyper minimal or just not there at all. I had my plenty of issues with the first film's characterizations and pacing as well, no doubt. However, it was definitely much more smoothly handled there, with no seriously down-dragging issues. Everyone may have just been predictable archetypes, but everyone also stood out from one another at least, and filled some sort of purpose. And for as quick as the general pacing was for the film, it also stayed that way consistently, and all the plot lines and character arcs got resolved around the time I'd expect them to. The Galaxy movie is also fast-paced, but it's also so much more unfocused, and as I hinted a few minutes ago, doesn't even bother to properly conclude the character arcs it begins at times. It either just drops them out from the story, or just completely rushes them with no time for you to take in. I mentioned Roselina and Peach having an important backstory earlier, and basically, they're sisters. Yup, the storybook has been retconned, and unfortunately this new thing is infinitely more cliché and also cheapens Roselina's character, but that's not the point I'm making here. Throughout the movie, you're constantly being hinted that the two are related in some way or another, and after Peach stumbles up on a Deus Ex Diary Machina, you learn that they were really close to each other when they were together. Through an admittedly forced, but still barely emotional flashback sequence. So clearly, you'd think the reunion is gonna be a tearjerker, right? Nah, they just exchange 2 lines or so, and then they're back at the Mushroom Kingdom for a slapstick ending. Because they did not give a shit about fleshing out more than the bare necessity. And that's as if this backstory wasn't lame on top of it, like, what? Peach and Roselina were just random space people created randomly by Stardust, who could make planet-wide alive by touching each other? Okay, that's both way less interesting than the original Roselina backstory, and it also raises more questions than answers. Like, this is the power that fully helps them defeat the bad guys at the end. If they were this insanely powerful together, why did Roselina send Peach away to begin with to protect her from deceiving bad guys? This is so goddamn stupid. And what happened to Roselina after? Did she just seemingly escape these seeming bad guys? How did she get to the Space Observatory and become the mother of Loomis in this timeline? And this general disinterest for exploring the deeper themes goes for virtually everything in this movie. In general, this film doesn't really care about having a cohesive plot with proper character development for anyone. Somehow the first movie did that better, as shallowly as it was handled. It was a movie first and foremost, and the references weren't a mere focal point. There was a central plot, and then there were also fanservice sprinkled in to enhance it. The Diki Island bit had a proper purpose, the Mario Kart bit had a purpose, even the wedding did. They weren't just references. Meanwhile, the Mario Galaxy movie is more like a bunch of references first, and then there's a plot trying to stitch all of it together. There's a scene when Peach and Toad infiltrate an underground casino with Super Mario Bros. 2 enemies, and interrogate Wart about who kidnapped Roselina, even though they have no reason to believe he has anything to do with it. They're just there to get Toad's purse back. And the information they get is just something that this Luma character who escaped Bowser Jr. at the start of the film and found Peach could have relayed anyways. And he then pretty much completely disappears for the rest of the film anyways, rendering that whole sequence pointless. But oh my god, Wart is back, guys! Isn't that what's most important? There's also another sequence later down the line where the gang crashes down on a Cascade Kingdom-like planet after Mario and Luigi get turned into babies. Yes, oh my god, it's just like Odyssey, guys, and Yoshi's Island. Then they're just goofing around for about 10 minutes until Luigi, of all people, finally sends out a distress signal to space. What the hell was the point? There are so many better ways that time could have been spent. Maybe have the characters reflect on each other. And I also don't even need to mention the Honeyhive Galaxy bit again. It's just poorly setting up a plotline it doesn't explore later anyways. It's just there to split the bros and Bowser up, give them a way to reunite with their respective teams, and show off 10 seconds of Honeyhive characters in HD. I mean, technically that is a purpose to this scene, but it's not a satisfying one. And it's just hard to care about anything happening as a result. Even the ending is slapstick levels of unserious. See, right after Mario and Luigi defeat the Bowsers with the power of fan service, they pretty much immediately teleport back to the Mushroom Kingdom, try to make a funny moment out of the fact that Peach's castle is gone, and then they just immediately rebuild it in a 2D Mario World montage anyways. It's such a tonal whiplash, solidifies how little this movie actually cares about taking itself or anything seriously, and moreover, this is a f***ing reference to the ending of Hotel Transylvania 4, one of my most hated movies of all time. You know what? I'm done. I could probably talk on and on about even more of the smaller things about this movie, like the fact that Bowser turns into Dry Bowser, or that Daisy shows up for a few seconds in the post-credits, but honestly, this movie only deserves so much attention as it bothers to value its own references and self. Why should I care about any of these references, when their only purpose is for me to point at the screen, and not serve the plot in any meaningful way? On the whole, it's just a sloppy mishmash of fanservice intended to do the barest of minimum to entertain children and adults alike who just want to see more things happening on a big screen. Everything that happens only does so for laughs and nostalgia, no matter how cheap or substanceless it is in the grand scheme. And honestly, the fact that this is going to be enough for this to become one of the highest grossing movies ever, it makes me sad and disappointed for how low the standards are for these movies. Don't take this as me saying you shouldn't enjoy this movie. If you do, more power to you. However, it also doesn't stop me from wondering how this film is in any way satisfiable to such a large percentage of people. People clown on the critics for just not getting Mario, but like, they're not exactly wrong. These aren't particularly quality movies. They're the bottom of the barrel in terms of safe character, plot, and story direction. But because they've also got the Mario paint and Bing Bing Woohoo references painted over them, suddenly that makes them so much better? I don't know, I just think we deserve far better media that pays respect to this franchise in its own right, without just taking the lamer parts of the games and extending that out to a thin 100 minutes. The Mario games are one thing, the Mario movies should be another. Just look at the Sonic movies, they had actual plot and emotion. They work without having to stand on the games. If these Mario movies existed separately without the Mario games ever having been a thing, that would put it special into perspective just how shallow and mindless these are as films. No different from the average Illumination slop. And honestly, I'd rather watch Minions over this. At least that's so dumb it loops back to being funny and has marginally more personality. And I'm not gonna excuse this movie for being sloppy because it's a kid's movie either. Yeah, sure, children are still gonna love it, the same way they love 6-7, and the same way I loved a bunch of dumb shit when I was a kid. That doesn't mean they don't deserve something they can enjoy just as much as an adult and reflect on more. But yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. Maybe I'll do a more in-depth video on this film later. I'm kind of tired and this is just a short vent about it, so it's probably not up to quality with my other videos, but yeah, overall, I give this movie a 3 out of 10. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know a lot of people are probably gonna unsubscribe. That's what happened when I expressed my concerns for this movie, but I don't care. This is my channel, and I believe it should host my honest opinions. So yeah, I'm signing off now. Until next time.